Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Stories That Inspire Us. My name is Janice Malillo, your host, and today I have on an amazing guest. And I'm so excited to get this conversation, but first, of course, I want to introduce her. She's a former U.S. Marine turned business mentor and women's health advocate, dedicated to helping you secure the wealth legacy in your lineage. I am so excited to welcome to the Stories podcast, Allyza Shaine. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited.
Oh, gosh, me too. You know, when we first met, a couple months ago, first and foremost, thank you for your service to our country. I always love to recognize our veterans for their service. And you're so welcome. No, it is I that thank you, but thank you for saying that. Former U.S. Marine turned business mentor. And what really sticks out to me again is I read your bio again yesterday. I read it this morning. I read it about an hour ago. And here's what I always come back to. Since taking the oath of becoming the chain breaker, you are chain breaker.
Yes.
So how did all that get started?
Oh my goodness. I think it had a lot to do with growing up. I was born and raised in the Philippines, and by the time I was 7, it was just myself, my brother, my sister, and my dad that migrated to the US. And back then the laws for immigration made it so that my mom couldn't migrate with us. So it was just us and my mom being left in the Philippines, and we were all separated for 10 years. So being 7 years old and the oldest of three siblings, my brother was only 4. My youngest sister was, I think she was 9 months old. I basically, became their mom at 7. And, we experienced all of that financial difficulties. I watched my father literally struggle to make ends meet, working 2 jobs like day and night, to make sure that we're provided for and that he's present there, even though he's like a single parent for those 10 years. And then just watching my mom basically, raise us from afar, basically through phone calls. And so I swore to myself when I grew up and had my own kids that I was going to do everything in my power to, provide for my kids, but at the same time, be there for my kids. And so when I had my first daughter, I took that oath and, I was going to break those chains. I was not going to be part of my generation or the woman history in my family, at least in my culture, where women were not encouraged to work or be independent financially or, all the typical like Asian household you'd see, like the mom was just at home. I swore to myself I wasn't going to do that because I wanted a good life for my children, and I want to be present at the same time and be able to not just provide, but be comfortable with them, like financially, and have that freedom that I wanted so much when I was growing up. So that's where it stemmed from.
Wow. As I was listening to you describe that separation, your dad and you and your siblings coming to the US and your mom that had to stay behind. At 7 years old, do you think that you fully grasped that it was, or perhaps you didn't, because at such a young and impressionable age, that you might not see your mom for a while?
I did not know that it was going to take that long. What my parents had told me was it was going to be some time before she was able to go there, but we had to fight with the immigration process, and they had like a 5-year minimum of like waiting time to be able to get her here. So I knew it was at least 5, but my brain back then didn't understand how long that actually took. And then growing up in that 5-10 year span, it was just a big, huge change where I had to, my maternal instincts like had to turn on. I had to, grow up at 7. So I didn't fully understand what that entailed for me as the oldest sibling for my family.
I can't even fathom what that was like, being the youngest. Well, I shouldn't say the youngest. I'm number 5 out of 6 children, but the second youngest. I can't imagine the separation for you and then the role that you are now taking on at 7
Mhm.
years old. So bring us fast forward. Now you've joined the Marines.
Yep.
My gosh, there's just no end to what you can accomplish, just saying.
Thank you. Yeah, it was actually before that, I was actually in med school. I dropped out.
You know what? I think I do remember
Yeah.
talking about that. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, but ambition for you was really on different levels. And when you say,
Yeah.
taking the oath, I imagine you taking the oath as a U.S. Marine.
Yes. We had to step on those yellow footprints.
And now, wow.
Yeah.
So, and now you're a mom.
Yes. Yeah, my husband is active duty, so we're still living a military lifestyle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now, and of course, living the military lifestyle, and that's a lot, not only for you and your husband, but as a family unit.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Actually, this in the next 3 weeks, my husband is actually deploying, and I'm currently 6 months pregnant, so I'll be giving birth without him.
Oh,
And then I have my 2 girls, so we're trying to juggle that stress, but I think we'll make it.
there is no doubt in my mind that you will do just that. So now you obviously come up with this idea to be a business mentor. And this is why I always say sharing your story is so important, because as a child going through what you and your family went through, serving in the Marines, now a mom, still living the military lifestyle, pregnant with your 3rd child, your husband soon to be on deployment. How did it occur to you, I'm onto something here, like I can add being a business mentor and a women's health advocate? That's like, where did that come up? Like, oh, was it an idea or concept? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so it was actually, we were still stationed in Japan when I had just given birth to my first. And I was just in that transition phase of from active duty to stay at home mom. And I was losing my mind because, we're up at like 5 a.m. and sometimes I wouldn't get home until the next day because we were doing a lot of field work. And I was just losing my mind because I was like, what am I supposed to do? I have this one, and I know most people will be like, you have a kid, you should be busy with that, but it wasn't like a smooth transition from doing so much at one time to just focusing on one thing. And I was just not having I was just not vibing with the fact that I did not have like my own money coming in again. Like I wanted to, still have my own independence financially. So I dabbled with things that basically I was looking for ways to make money for myself without having to leave my daughter, because that was one of my non-negotiables. Was when I become a mom, I was not gonna separate from my kids. I wanted to be present from when they grew up to, all that. And so I knew that I had a knack for designing, so I actually started as a graphic designer freelancing. And then if that wasn't enough, I saw my daughter, like I hated that she didn't have hair. So I made like hair bows, and everyone started seeing them. And in Japan, we were in a small base, so everyone took notice of like I was bringing in money without like working on base at the commissary or like doing MLM, because that's kind of like the thing to do, like as a military spouse. That was like what was available for us. So I was going on literal coffee chats. Like we would go to brunch, have coffee, and they would ask me how am I doing all of this, and I was just showing them what I was doing. I was giving them like, I was asking them all the coaching questions that I did not know was even coaching. I was just asking them basic questions like, what is that, what you do, and showing them the possibilities of what they can do with what they have. And then from there, I think someone posted on their Instagram, and they basically like titled me or named me their business coach. And I was like, what is a business coach? So I went in the rabbit hole Googling things, and I was like, people get paid for what I do. And I went in a rabbit hole. I hired my first coach, and that was basically it. So my first like niche was basically just helping other military spouse make money from home that wasn't, MLM. And then from there, I basically noticed that there was a gap between being able to stand out in the crowd, and being, not just deserving to charge what your value is or what you bring to the table, but being able to stand in that authority and say, I own this is my space, and I will charge as is. And so that's where the whole the pivot from just business mentoring to authority coach is what I'm like naming myself right now for this current launch, to basically help other women stand and empower themselves that they can charge. They can be the most expensive one in the room, and they deserve to.
You bring up some great points. For instance, to charge the value of what you are worth, but stand in that authority.
Yes.
For instance, if I'm coaching and I say, my package is $1,500, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But to own that in such a way, to have the authority, but I don't want to say with respect, because obviously you do that because that is a value. Your time is valuable. You have certain non-negotiables. You are honoring that not only with yourself, but with your family.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is fabulous. Like,
thank you.
You're so welcome. Now let's talk about the gap, because I think you found a very specific niche, and I think that you saw it and it developed in such a way where, oh, people are getting paid for this, like light bulbs were going off, so to speak.
Oh yeah, for sure.
When, for instance, and I'm curious to know this, when you sat down and said, this is what I'm going to do, these are my fees, or these are my packages, however you worked it out, what was one thing that perhaps stood out to you? And maybe it was a fear, and maybe it was an assumption of a fear that, can I really do this? Did any of that come up?
Oh, for sure. Because I was, when I was first starting, I was hiring my coaches, and looking through when I was being coached in the beginning, they were telling me like to look at my competitors, what they're charging and whatnot. And I felt so insecure because my background is not the corporate background like everyone else is. The competitors I was looking at were their marketing graduates. They were working with big brands and working on their marketing team and all this and that. And I felt so disempowered and like unqualified to do what I was doing because I had none of that. I came from like a military background, and what I did in that arena was communications. I was literally doing all the networking, but I was working with the higher ups. I was working with colonels, with 5-star generals. So I had to establish myself as an authority amongst my peers to be chosen to work with those people specifically. So my perspective on authority was unique in a sense where I had to stand out to work with those higher ups, because I knew that my position as someone in the lower ranking was not that's not something that happens every day. No 5-star general looks at the crowd, picks the lowest one to work with. So that's the whole concept that I found. And I know that many people, I know that for myself as well, that when I first started coaching people, like, who am I to even ask someone who earns higher than me to coach them on something that, feels like I'm not qualified for? Like, who am I to work with like 8-figure business owners when I haven't even reached 8 figures? But looking back at my work from the military, like, it makes total sense, because not everyone, even people at 7-8 figures, have their own devils to wrangle with. And that is the skill that I've developed that's so unique, that I think not a lot of people have or are able to what's the word to work with in this industry and transfer their work history and transfer it to the coaching industry.
Wow. And right there in a nutshell, okay, like you own what you are doing. You looked at it and said initially, well, they're kind of higher up, but everything that you did, like all those things that you did in communications, with having the communication to communicate.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's not like a word salad. But communicate with higher ups. That's pretty valuable, because, for instance, if you're talking to a 5-star general, you don't want to be lackadaisical. Like, you have to stand in your authority with the general and say, this is the problem and this is how I solved it.
Yep, you have to own your space. And I think that's what I see in the space right now, is many people hide from the spotlight because they don't own the space that they should and deserve to own. And I'd love to pull them out of that shell and, show them that, hey, this is your space, take it. Like, you deserve to take that space.
And that's empowering within itself, because when I think you get to that point where you own your space, you not only own your space, but you are in that realm where you are able to inspire others to do the same.
Exactly. We're creating our own table.
Wow. Have you ever written a book? You have to write a book if you haven't, just saying.
I'm in the process. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. When you look back at your story, so you're doing what you're doing. When you look back at your story, do you see yourself in the possibility of perhaps doing like a live or a virtual event? In other words, like for other military spouses that, may want to do something, but they really just aren't really sure what to do.
Yeah, I'm actually have been dabbling around, like, just hosting simple workshops for military spouses right now. I'm part of we're in a big base right now in California. So I see a lot of military spouse constantly asking, hey, what are you guys doing at home? Because I want to stay with my kids, but I want to make money. I mean, we're in California. Our gas prices are ridiculously high. So is rent. So I definitely understand the whole, what they can do at home to help with their spouse. So I've been dabbling with just doing like even just like a virtual Zoom for that. But I also want to start looking into like military contracts, because I know that when I transitioned, it was rough to find and how to transition what I was doing in the military into something that was making money in the civilian world. And I know that all of these military, my brothers and sisters, are so talented on their own too. And the skills that they've developed in their work is so valuable that it looks so hard to like transition that into something that's like doable in the civilian world without being, without having to start over.
Mhm.
Just transitioning that seamlessly that they can thrive without having to struggle. So I've been dabbling in there. So yeah, that's in the works.
Wow, that is awesome. When someone comes to work with you, do you just work, for instance, specifically with military spouses, or do you work with other women as well that are not?
I work with any women who are established at what they do. And by what I mean by that is that they know who they help and they know how to help them. Like they have at least some sort of track record that they can produce the results that they claim to. And that's just my requirement. All the other requirements are basically just mindset and like, are you really going to do what you say you're going to do? Because I'm going to push you to your limits and show you the possibilities. And if I give you all of that and you're overwhelmed, then we're not the right fit. I'm going to give you to someone else who will prime you to work with me until you're ready to push those buttons and, look over the edge and see what is possible for you. But yeah, I work with many women in different industries, just as long as they have a track record that they know what they're doing and who they help.
And again, I love how you've created your niche within the definition of your boundaries. And again, respecting your boundaries, because I think that is so important to establish that before you hop into a business. What do you think is one of the most important things about mindset? And I know that's kind of a broad question, but for instance, what are some strategies that you could share? Like maybe someone has this idea, maybe they've done some Google searches or go on Pinterest, Instagram, whatever, to look up people that may be in the similar type of industry. What would you say is the most important thing about that mindset when they are kind of starting the process?
To not compare yourself with everyone else. For sure. Because I mean, if you look at any corner, there's Starbucks, but then there's another coffee shop. Like, you know what I mean? Like everyone serves the same thing, but what makes you you? And that you need to stand in that ground. You need to own it, because what that other coffee shop or what Starbucks has, you offer something more or something that they don't offer, or cater to who you want to help and who you're serving, who you're meant to serve. So put your blinders on. And as much as you want to keep looking at other people who are doing that, just know that's a confirmation that people are buying what you want to sell. And that's the end of that comparison. After that, run with your idea and have your own back.
Mm.
No matter what happens, have your own back.
I love that because, I think when we get into the comparison game, and no doubt for me, I'm a little bit older than you are, but, going back to my entrepreneur journey, I wasn't so sure. Like I knew what I wanted to do, but wasn't sure how to do it. But you have to have kind of the right mindset, whatever that is. And it can be different, of course, for everyone, to
Yeah,
have that
absolutely.
right mindset to, for instance, you have non-negotiables, what are people's boundaries? What do they want? What do they want their typical hours to be? What are their non-negotiables? And I think that is so important to kind of establish that. And, you know, here I am, about 4 years later. And of course, I'm, in the process of revamping everything. That's another story within itself, and I don't want to bore everybody, but what would you suggest to someone like me who has, their own business,
Mhm.
really wants the opportunity to niche down even further. What do you think is the most important thing that perhaps I should focus on?
I think it's just what your soul is calling you to do. I think it's just super important to just really feel like embody what it is you feel like you're meant to do and just run with it. Because times are changing. It's not like years ago, and by years I mean like internet years, where whatever's popular you run with it, whatever's trending you run with it. But now buyers are so much more intuitive when it comes to working with someone or basically giving their money to whoever it is. And if it's something you're really called to do, people will feel it, people will know it, and they will pay however much it is you want to charge, because it lights you up. And that's the thing that they were called in your space. They were called to your space, and it attracts them. So whatever it is that fuels your soul, do it, run with it, find someone who will support you in that.
I don't know if you see me like smiling over here. It just kind of confirms everything that I'm doing. But, thank you so much for sharing,
Yeah.
because I think for me, having that space to do what I love to do when I want to do it, of course, and know my worth and stand in that ownership of who I am, that just goes to show you that anyone can do it. But it's about kind of, taking the reins and breaking the chain.
Yes.
Wow.
It
Um,
really is.
where do you see yourself, in other words, perhaps with your business, maybe 2-3 years down the road? Like, do you have kind of a vision about where your business will be?
For sure. So after 2 or 3 years, what I'm envisioning myself doing is doing more of live events. So guest speaking on stages is what I envision myself doing, because I'll be able to travel more now that we've spoken about it, that our family is now complete with the 3 girls. So that I'll be able to travel more, and just spread my message that way, in person, as well as being able to further scale my business to the point where I can position it in a place where I can hire a CEO and I just do the visionary things and keep in my zone of genius. But that's further on, but I want to position my business into that point. But yeah, 2 to 3 years, potentially I'd have my book out and do live stages.
Wow. I see that, no doubt. And by the way, the books over here, which I'm sure you can see,
Yeah.
these are all books from authors that have been on the author series on Stories That Inspire Us, or will be on soon. Your book needs to be over here. Step.
Envisioning it right now.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Before we sign off, can you let our viewers and listeners know where they can connect with you further?
Absolutely. The best way to connect with me further is through my private email community. It's absolutely free, but the community is called Influentially Disruptive. Every week, I send some inspiring stories that may be weird, but connected to how we can stand into our authority and own our space. And that's basically where you can. Sometimes I send daily emails, but you will love them. And right now, if you wanted to work with me such a low rate, I am hosting what I call a summer slumber party workshop, where we uncover and communicate your body of work and turn into an intellectual property. that makes it so people talk about you even when you're not in the room. So basically to command your attention, to captivate your audience, and to conquer your competitors with just this simple thing that we call your body of work. But that is on June 20th, which is next week, Wednesday. So if they want that, I can send the link for that as well.
Oh, that would be awesome. And of course, I will make sure all that information is in the show notes. It has been such an amazing conversation with you today. I am so honored to have met you. So honored that you are sharing such great information. And I really could talk for like another hour or so, but
I can do it.
we'll definitely have to keep in touch. I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, in being true to yourself and to your family. I think that is beautiful.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Well, folks, you heard it here today. Stories that inspire us. These are why your stories are so important. You have a story to share. Maybe you've come up with an idea. Maybe it's a story of triumph over tragedy. Somebody needs to be inspired by your story. Let it happen. Take that authority, feel it, know that you can help and serve others. My name is Janice, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Today, amazing, and continue to be inspired by this young, beautiful lady, Allyza Shaine. Thank you so much, everyone. And remember, your story matters. Go to my website and you can register as a guest. Let's share your story. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye for now.